Hey guys, welcome. Welcome to Linux for Seniors. Should be an icon in the corner floating above the time date if you'd like to subscribe. If you don't find that icon, then go find me on YouTube. This is just a watermark to remind you you're watching this on Linux for Seniors. If you don't see that icon, you're watching it on someone else's channel, and go find me on YouTube. 300 videos and growing. I had a subscriber ask me the other day, can I make some more fun with bash apps? So I did. I have one today that takes human kind of names for websites and translates them into IP addresses or Internet Protocol addresses. And that's what your web browsers use. I'll touch a little bit upon that and give you a little bit of trivia regarding that kind of information. But I'm going to first open this up and show you this and just make mention of the fact you can do all this stuff in terminal with some simple commands, but I just made it into an app. So I will use apple.com as my first example. And that's the current IP address of Apple right now. And then I can also type in a new address because this program is set to loop. So I will type in google.com. Now, if you type it wrong and it finds an address, that means it's more likely a spoofed address, and more importantly, it will still give you a number. But if you type in a bogus address, like I will type in ba.org, which it will not find. If I type in ba.com, I get a valid address. So that is the current address for that. The box above it is a name or service not found. And this one is for Google, and that is the current address for that. This is all using DNS by your machine. Domain name system is the yellow pages of the internet. I'll explain that a little bit in a second. This is just an app that you can write using Born Again Shell, bash. Hopefully we'll have a little fun and I'll explain all these steps. Okay, filming in 1920 by 1080. I highly suggest you check your YouTube player because the text may be too small for some. I always recommend that you watch this on the largest screen possible for you because I film directly from the desktops themselves on all my videos. So I have a couple of other examples for you that I produced on my previous video. Now, Paul is a made-up name, and on the last video, I did something similar to that. Just going to rehash some of this stuff, and again, you can hit subscribe and watch the rest of them. You can use this for guessing birthdays or events in time. So some of you folks are from the United States, so I will put in July 1776. July 4th is Independence Day, but what day of the week did that fall on? 1776, not today, in 1776. That was a Thursday. You can see it listed right here on the calendar. So what's the example of this for? Well, if I wanted to impress my friends or family, I will plug in a birthday, like 2 for February 1965, for instance. This is the calendar from February of 1965. So if I got a friend that was born on the 23rd, he or she was born on a Tuesday. A little fun with calendar. So I also wrote, I'll just have this displayed. It's a lot easier for me to show you this. These boxes will auto close in a second. So all of these were done with Born Again Shell, bash apps. And all I did was have a little fun with a couple of them. But someone requested some more. So I wrote this one today. This is human to IP addresses. Now, before somebody starts sending me messages that I have a different way of doing codes, or if I have a different application or program to use, I understand that. There are many ways to do this stuff in Linux. There's many programs that I could have chose differently, but I'm using bash today, Born Again Shell. I can also choose different codes when I write these things. But before you send those messages, I'm just wanting to let you know what I picked for today, and these are just mine. Okay? Now, whenever you write one of these in a text editor, you don't use a word processor when you do this. you should always get a dialog box in Linux Mint that looks like this after you write it. If you don't, that means you didn't set this properly. And that's usually what happens is you forget that part. Now it just opens it in the text editor. So you make sure that you change the properties on that to allow that to be executing as a program. It's very important. And then later on, I'll talk about how to make launchers. Okay? So we can test our scripts first. We can always do that. And it doesn't matter at this point what kind of website I use. So ba.com is easy enough to type. And if the address is bad, it doesn't find it. So let's take it apart. And then I'll explain a little bit about the way a web browser works in the background if you're not familiar with that process. All right, so I have my standard bin bash statement. If you followed any of my videos on how to make simple launchers to do backups and stuff like that, they all use bin bash. So let me cover this real quick for the folks that may not be aware of this, but your file system root has a bin folder or bin directory. This is a link to it. In here is bash, born again shell. Born again shell is the shell that most Linux distributions nowadays use. It's very popular. Bash commands can be used with a lot of different types of commands also. This is the ones I chose for today. So don't bother sending me messages regarding that. I have a different way of doing things. Yes, I know that. There are many different commands you can use. These are the ones I chose today. So I do the first line with the bin bash. Then I do a while space colon do. That sets up a loop. It sets up a loop. Everything below this line will loop until it hits the done statement. Then it goes back and loops again and again and again. Examples of this, shortcut time, is when I type in an address like apple.com. It gives me the information. It pings it only once, and I'll show you where that command is in a second. And I can have it ping as many times as I want, but it returns a number. And then it hits a line with the dashes and starts the script all over again until I close this box. That's why I put that line. Please hit close. Okay? So I'm going to open and let it pause so we can follow along here. So the while do starts a loop. The echo just means skip a line from the top. You'll see a blank line and then it's got yellow text. And then it skips another line and it's waiting for me to enter something. So if you've never seen scripts, a lot of programmers put pound symbols in there to explain things. All right, this stuff is just fluff. It's just text, as one would say. But some of it could be valuable, like read P is an input line, or this funky looking code is the color yellow. And that funky looking code is the normal color. So I'll walk through this in a second for you. So right now, the first line got skipped, and then it says simple bash born again shell human name to IP or Internet Protocol address ping application, because it's going to be using ping. This is all fluff. You can do all these commands directly into terminal. I'm just showing you how to make a cutesy little app that you can throw in your menus. So echo is skip a space, and then echo E is a special command that has a quote on it with this code on it. That code again represents the color yellow. I'm not going to cover any other colors today. Blank, and then I type this in. It's just fluff. It's just text. But anytime you create a script with inputs on it, you need to tell the user what you're asking for. So in this case, it says, please enter human name for website. Example would be google.com or some name ... You can put in org or whatever. Well, an example of that would be xfce-look.org. And you hit enter. Does it exist? Well, if your DNS is working properly and it gives you a number, it does exist. At the same time I'm using this, I'm also checking my internet connection and if DNS is working. And it is, because I got a number here. It got translated. I'll talk a little bit about DNS in a minute. All right, so I'm going to reopen this app and continue on with the script, and then we'll talk a little bit about what DNS does if you're not aware of what it does. Because I think it's, especially for users that just start understanding how network protocols and stuff like that. I've been doing this stuff for many years, but more importantly, you know, if you're starting to learn how this stuff works in a background on a web browser and stuff like that. Because I'm going to take one of these addresses and let you see this. All right, let's focus in on the script for a second. So we got this yellow thing converted, and then what's on the tail end of this thing, after I put in this information in yellow, there's a star here. It's just all text, but this part converted all the text into yellow. The echo line is just basically print that on the terminal box. This part here actually converts it back to white. There's a quote here and a quote here. There are no other quotes in between. So this is changing that to yellow, typing what this is, and then converting it back to white. So now we're back to the next line. So right now the next line has a read parameter on it. The read parameter is something I picked. There's other commands you can use, but it's the input line. And the sample is ADDER, a made-up name. That is called a variable. It's waiting for you to enter information. So whenever you create a script using like read or input lines or any of that kind of stuff, you're going to need to tell your user what you're asking for. So in this case, it says, please enter human name of a website with the examples. So that's what's flashing right now. That's the input. And then after you put the input, then it skips a line, and then it actually performs, all the magic is done with that line. Everything else is fluff. As a matter of fact, the whole script is fluff. But it's something cutesy you can put in your menus. All right, so let me bring this back up. So right now I'm going to type in apple.com. And when I hit enter, it's going to take that information and add it to that $ADDR, because that's called a variable. You provided the input. Even if I put in bogus information, it's going to do something with it. Well, the ping space -C space 1 is going to ping that address only once. There you go. One packet transmitted, one packet received. But it translated that into a number while it was doing it. That's what this is. And that's what this whole program is all about. That whole line is really written just for that command. But you need to put in some text in there to understand it. So the next line below that is another echo skip a line, and then another echo E, special echo E, converts that back to yellow. And the search was for equals, I just used the equals, you can put whatever you want in here. $ADDR is the variable for that you plugged in, so that plugs in that information right here. So let me do BA.com because it's easy to type. Now the yellow line says BA.com here, and that one says Apple.com here, because it's just taking the data that you plugged in and plugging it in right here. You don't have to use equal signs. You can use whatever you want. It's just text. Convert it to yellow, of course. That's what this code does. And then it goes on and on and on. And then I put in there, this search was for apple.com above. In other words, this information. The current internet protocol address or IP address is listed above in the bracket, which is that one right up there, which was searched by the DNS on your machine. And I'll talk about DNS in a minute. Okay? As we move along, we've already printed this in yellow, and then again at the very end, it converts it back to white text. I skip a line, which there's the skip in here, and then I type a standard echo line. Please hit close to exit app. That's all done in white. And then I did another fluffy line, a bunch of dashes, just to give the box some dashes so you can see that you have sections. Keep in mind you can continually do this. So here's another one, hotels.com. Okay, I have the address here for hotels.com. And we can scroll up and take a look at some of this information. Okay, all this will be here until I hit close. So now we're down here to this dash, and the next line down below that says echo on it. And then it does the dashes, and then below that is done. So after it hits that spot, it loops back around and it starts the script all over again and types simple bash, skips over to the read command, which again, yellow, skip, and please enter more information. If the script has an error, I typed in an exit. And all this stuff is literally fluff. It's just made as remarks. Most programmers do this. I sometimes don't type in stuff, but this will tell me, or tell a user what that readp is used for and what that code is used for. Because I typed this in myself. This again is all this stuff is fluff. Okay. So hopefully you subscribed if you want to do this. And I will reduce the text a little bit and let you look at this from top to bottom. Subscription is usually best if you want to try to do this on your own. Let me explain some things. I'm going to leave this open for a second. So I will find apple.com, for instance. I'm going to highlight this number. If you're not aware what DNS does, domain name system, just to give you an example, I've been doing this for quite a while. The number of DNS servers out there when I started was only 5 in the world. There are over 600 right now. We have lots of websites and we have lots of different entities like .coms, .orgs, and etc. But your web browsers, whether you use a standard computer or a mobile device phone, smartphone, that use a web browser all need DNS. DNS is like the yellow pages of the internet. Your web browsers do not talk in the same language we do. I'm going to copy that number and open up Firefox. I'm going to type in the word ping because typing that directly into the address bar is not desirable. But I will type in the number that I just pulled directly off this box, and I'm going to compare these for you. All right, so basically I skipped a couple of lines. Oh, there we go. So when I clicked, I dragged it at the same time. I apologize. But anyways, that number translates into what? Apple Inc. Apple Inc. 17.253.144.10 is what I have listed here. So your web browsers, the way they work, whether you're talking to Apple or Amazon or your bank or credit card or whatever it might be, they all connect with an IP address. It's all done through the magic of your internet connection. Your internet connection is usually provided by an ISP, whether it's fiber, cable modem, or something else. Your internet service provider usually provides you also with a DNS, domain name system, the yellow pages of the internet. Those servers translates those funny languages we call apple.coms into numbers. And then once your web browser and computer connect to that entity, you start a conversation. Same thing happens with your bank, and hopefully it's a secure connection, one of those. But more importantly, they all use IP addresses. There's lots of servers out there. I don't remember what the last tally with Google is. I want to say 600,000 Linux servers, maybe it's 1 million. It's been a while since I added up those numbers. But anyways, that's what IP addresses do in the background. Your mobile devices, your smartphones, when you use a web browser, also use DNS, domain name system. There's also free DNS services out there. I don't want to get off on a tangent, folks, but anyways, here's some of the public ones that are free. Okay, I use this service here quite frequently on some of my other computers. You can see Cloudflare is probably the easiest one to remember. 4 sets of 1s. This is IP version 4. We're running out of addresses too if we haven't done so already, and we're switching over to IP version 6 shortly. Too much information. Anyways, moving along. So this is a simple tool that you can actually use here also. So let me give you that example. Ping, apple.com. When you use that statement, it's doing the exact same thing as my app, but it continually pings. All right. And I'm going to use Control-C. That's one way to stop it. That was 9 packets transmitted, 8 received. I will do the same thing over here. Am I using Apple? Yeah. That's 1 ping only. So right now, that returned the same address as this over here. Okay? And I have 2 terminal boxes open. That's why I paused for a second. But more importantly, you can see that it says 1 packet transmitted. With this over here, if you use regular pings, and I'll just change that to Google, for instance, it sets up a loop. It will just keep pinging. Okay, until you either do this or you do the Control-C. Okay, again, Control-C stops it. All right, so I'm going to type in clear to be, well, to clear the screen. If you'd like, I will make this slightly larger. I will zoom in, so a couple of zooms in. So a smarter way of doing this is ping space -C1. You saw that in my script file. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do it for you. All right, here's your script file that I wrote. You can see in here that I used a C1 in here also. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is use the same and type in apple.com. It pings it only once. You see 1 packet transmitted, 1 packet received. If I use the same statement and I do and change this to 3, just make sure there's a space there, then it'll ping it once, twice, 3 times. So I can also change that up and do google.com. Okay, 3 times. All the magic is done with that -C and how many times you want it. The minimum is 1. If you don't do that and you decided, sorry, I'm just going to hit that, allow it to ping, and then I'm going to type in another manual statement of ping. And what did we use on the last one? Google? Okay. And ping. And it'll just keep cycling over and over and over and over and over until I hit Control-C, or you can also hit the X in the corner. Typing up clear. pingba.org. Bad name or service. Do you remember when I did that in the application? Yeah, it returns the same. Because the tool that I'm using is the exact same tool as this is using. All I did was create an application for it. This one right here. Made it into a fancy looking icon and put it in my menus. So let's talk about making that fancy icon. Right click, create launcher. Couple of rules to remember. You can use commands or script files when you're doing commands. However, if you use uppercase letters, you will get a red X. That command actually does exist. And if I type in top in here, it all depends on what casing I use. Lowercase top works. Control-C. Clear. Uppercase top gives me an error. Command not found. Linux is literal. So the same thing goes in here, is that if I type in lowercase top, I get an arrow. That means it's accepted. Okay? Just wanted to be clear about this. So if you have a red X here, you cannot proceed. So if your script file is not written properly because you forgot to turn on that attribute, it will also give you an X. So if you do that and it turns into an arrow, that means it's been properly formatted. If you neglected that, I'll do this on purpose. Some folks do this. They don't check their scripts before starting to create these things, and they walk over to this showstopper. They'll go, we'll just call this test 1 to give it a name, and I'll find the same script file. This is the same one I've been using the whole video. It's got a red X on it. I can't proceed. Even if with the rocket icon, I can't proceed because Linux Mint told you that it doesn't work. It's not a valid executable. All right, so let's fix that problem. Again, this is good information to have when you're troubleshooting. That's why I spend a lot of time on these videos sometimes. Maybe too much time. All right, we're just going to continue and call that one test 1 also. Lowercase doesn't matter. It's whatever name you want to give it. Does this stuff have to be in a script folder? Absolutely not. You put it wherever you want. My suggestion is give it a name. You don't put extensions on them. But I can call this X if I want. It's whatever is inside the script that is important. That gives me an arrow. That means it's valid. Let's give it an icon. How about something goofy? We'll pick face laugh guy. How's that? And then we do need to launch it in terminal. Comments are optional. And then you probably want face laugh guy in your menus. If you answer no, you only have the one icon. So let's go find face laugh guy. He's in there. You can also do it whatever the name you used. In my case, I used the word test. And there he is. So you can right click, add to panel, desktop, or favorite. If you did not know, you can also do it this way and also this way. If you decide to put it on your desktop, you need to right click and add to desktop this way and not drag the icon. Otherwise you get a weird looking box. Just wanted to clear on that one. All right, and there it is. There's the whole script in a nutshell. It doesn't matter what website I pick. The whole thing is all about you translating numbers. All right. So this way you also know your internet is working and your DNS is working. DNS, again, is normally always found on your internet service provider setting. After you pay them money, they give you an IP address and a DNS. You can also assign your own free DNSs. You can do the same on the mobile devices. Normally, if you're using wireless. If you're using the cellular part of it, that's a little bit different. But your cellular devices also, if they have web browsers, use DNS. Everybody uses the yellow pages of the internet called domain name system. All that stuff works in the background. That's why we don't have to deal with these funny numbers when we connect to these. My previous video, by the way, is called Cinnamon Fun with Apps. Sorry, Cinnamon Fun with Bash Apps. I did that 2 days ago. There was the birthday program in there, and a couple of these things in here are also located there. Thank you for watching. You folks have a wonderful day.